Well, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Meet the Author. Today, we have a Michaela Squared going on here. Welcome so much, Michaela. I'm so happy that you are joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
Okay, I always like to start off these interviews just very simple to kind of get people into it. So I like to ask an icebreaker question. Do you consider yourself more of a dog or cat person?
Oh, dog, absolutely.
I know it's the hard-hitting questions like
I I love cats, but I'm very allergic,
Okay.
which I didn't find out until, like, years later, but I love both, but I would say I'm a dog person because at least I can have dogs, and I've got 3, so I'm a bit overrun.
What kind of dogs do you have?
2 are Shih Tzus, and then the other one he's like I guess he's like a bit of like a mutt. He's like 75% poodle and like 25% ish Shih Tzu.
Okay,
But I mean, he looks purely poodle, and he's like a tiny
cool.
little rat. He's so little.
That's awesome. I love that. Shih Tzus are so cute. We have like neighbors like right down the street that have two little Shih Tzus, and they're like every time we walk by them, I'm like, hello.
Yeah, they're so if you want a lap dog, like they're great.
I love that. Yeah, my dog thinks she's a lap dog. She is not small. I have an Australian Shepherd, and she like clings, wants to be right on top of me, but I'm like, you're like 35 pounds. Please get off of me.
I almost sometimes feel like the bigger dogs are worse for wanting to be a lap dog than the little ones.
The little ones are sometimes just like, I want nothing to do with you, versus the big ones are like, here's all of my weight, actually. Well, again, I'm so glad that you were able to jump on today. For anyone who maybe this is their first introduction to you, kind of just give us a little fun fact of like, hey, this is who I am, and this is how I kind of got into writing.
I'm Micalea. I have been writing books since I was literally in high school. I I just, I liked to write. It was always just like a hobby. And I finished writing my first book when I was 16. And it was like at that point, I knew that this is what I want to do. And I self published. And I mean, it's been a wild ride. Lots of stuff has happened. Um, I had kidney failure in, oh gosh, what was that? 2016? 2017? I think 2017 now. I can't even keep up with it. And, I feel like that was obviously a very like drastic thing, but I think it really kind of helped shape me into the person I am today and kind of even love writing even more
Hmm.
because, it's an escape and it's an escape to write just as much as it is to read.
Do you feel like, you would still be on the same path if you like, because you were writing before, going through the stuff that you were going through, but do you feel
Mhm.
like that really helped shape obviously your career overall because you really were able to pour more into your writing, or do you think you still probably, even if you hadn't gone through all of that, would be where you are today?
I don't know. It's one of those things where I feel like before I got sick, I feel like I was on a good trajectory. So I feel like it kind of hurt me in a way and kind of stunted the growth that I was already on. Um, but I think it's again one of those things where I learned a lot from it, things that you wouldn't even think that you would learn. And I think I came back that much more confident in my writing and that much more like this is what I want to do with my life. And so it just made me work that much harder to, get back into it and get, working on social media and all of that stuff because I was not I was not posting much when, all that went on.
Obviously, I feel like that's one thing that I think obviously authors like you guys understand, but readers sometimes don't realize is you just see like a name on a book and people forget like this is a real human being who has so many other things going on in their life outside of like writing a book. And sometimes readers are like, hey, why aren't they posting so much, or why is it taking them so long to write books and other things, and it's like they have a life, they have things going on. Like, you guys amaze me so much. Just, I mean, the fact that you were still able to do so much while going through that is incredible. First and foremost, like, I applaud you so much for that. But people don't realize those things because they just like see a name on a book and they're just like, oh, okay, like this is just an author. And that's why I love
Yeah.
doing interviews. It's because it's like, no, I'm a human being and I have gone through so many things and I have all these other interests outside of being an author. Like it's not just my name.
Yeah, and, it's like, I feel like going through that taught me that it's okay to slow down, it's okay to need time. Before that, I literally look back and I don't know how I was doing it. I was releasing a book every other month, and
That's
I'm
insane.
like, I don't know how I was writing that fast. Like, and of course now, like, I have other, life factors, and I do suffer with brain fog for my medicines and stuff. So there is stuff that that slows me down now. But I'm like, how? How was I writing books that fast? I don't know. It just like they just poured from me. I definitely am much slower now. So it's usually about like 3 to 6 months between a release.
That still blows my mind though. Like, and that's the other thing, readers, every time a book comes out and you're just like, oh, I finished it in a day. Like, when's the next one? And you're like, this literally just took me months. Why? I
Yeah.
need to bring it.
No, like, I remember with Sweet Dandelion, because Sweet Dandelion is literally the length of 2 full-length novels, and I mean, I could have split it into 2 books. I didn't want to, I didn't feel like that would do the story justice, so I wanted to keep it one long book. But I mean, it took me 6 months to write because it was 2 books,
Yeah.
essentially, you know? And, people would, like, tell me that they read it in a day, and I'm like, "It's, like, this thick. How did you do that?"
I know so many people too with like big releases. They're like, I'm actually skipping work today and I'm going to sit there and read. And I'm like, I think authors are probably happy about that. But at the same time, you're like, this just took me so much time. And now you're
Yeah.
just going to sit in one sitting and I'm going to, start getting the messages of what's next. It's like, I gave it to you.
Yeah, and, I think it's, like, it's cool in a way because I mean, it's such a compliment that people can't put down the book, and, you've been spending months with these characters, and it's like, now you finally get to hear what other people think about them, and so I love that part.
Yeah. What is it like, when you first put a book out there? Like you just had your newest release, obviously.
Mhm.
What is that like when, again, you just said you've had months, you're working through, you're doing all the stuff for these characters, and now they're out into the world. What is that like first week typically like for you that, okay, the responses start to come back in, people are talking about the characters. What is that like for you?
I'm always nervous. I'm always very nervous to see how people, are going to react because you're always going to have people that love it or, they just are kind of meh on it and, or they don't like it at all. And that's okay. Um, but, it's especially I feel like with this one, I was very, very nervous because it is like technically book 6 in a series. And I'm like, are people already gonna have like certain expectations for what their book should be? And I feel like in a way it's harder with a series than it is with a standalone because of that reason. Because I mean, I do it as a reader. Like I'll be reading a book and I'm already like, ooh, like these characters, like, are they gonna get a book? And like kind of imagining what their book might be. And so I'm
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, I don't want to let anybody down. Like what if they're like, this isn't the story I wanted?
Yeah, but that's one thing too that I even have to go back sometimes with myself, and I kind of stand up for readers or for authors now. Is when people say like, "Oh, well, that's not what I expected." I'm like, "You didn't create these characters. Like they knew from the get go where this trajectory was going. So
Yeah.
you are like, well, that's not what I wanted as a reader. It's like you didn't write the story. If that's what you want, write that story.
Well,
You
and that's what I was gonna say too, is, I think as a reader, we almost always have like a writer brain too. And that's where like that comes from of imagining, oh, these characters. And then when the book doesn't match that, that's when I'm like, well, maybe that's like a story that you're meant to write
yeah.
because, that's what's speaking to you.
No, I think that's awesome. I personally like could not. I would love to say like, oh, I could sit down and write a book one day, and like I said, I give authors all of the props because I'm just like, especially again, you're putting out books like every couple of months. It would take me like 5 years probably to just get like a rough draft, and then I'd give up and be like, ah, I'm tired of this, So I think it's so cool that you guys are able to come up with so many stories. Kind of walk me through that process for you from like, okay, you have this idea now in your head. Walk me through what it's like to getting it. Okay, the book is published now; it's out there in the world for you.
Okay, I'm gonna kind of answer this twice. I'm gonna answer it before the
Okay.
brain fog and then how I am now. So like before all my kidney stuff and everything, like I would just get ideas from anything and everything, and I was very much a pantser. I did not plot a single thing. I would make my Pinterest board based on the vibes that I was feeling, and I just wrote, and that worked so well for me, and I think that's also part of the reason why I was able to write so fast is
Mhm.
I didn't know what was gonna happen. So in order for me to know what was gonna happen, I had to be writing it to see what happened next.
Mhm.
Now I am working I'm working on being a plotter. It's an adjustment, but with my brain fog, it definitely helps. So, um, like, for example, with the book I'm working on right now, which is the, like, spin-off to 1111, so it's Derek and Izzy's book. I sat down, like, I just had a feel for the vibes, and I sat down with my developmental editor, and she'll help you plot, basically.
Mhm.
And so we sat down and we talked for, like, about an hour or so and thoroughly plotted this book so that I would hopefully have an easier time writing it, which thus far I have. I am behind on my word count as per usual, but, um, yeah, and so and then, like, the one thing I do now too is, like, with the plotting, I'm a visual person. So, like, it helps me, like, I have these kind of, like, translucent sticky notes with lines on them
Cool.
to basically write, like, basic scenes down and then map them out on the wall, and they
Mhm.
might get moved around in order, and then when I've written that scene, take it off. And so, like, it's nice to see it gone because then you're like, "Oh, like, I'm making this progress."
I like that. I like that you can I feel like that's what a lot of people would have to do. Like you can visualize, okay, this is what I have, or this is where it's going, and
Yeah.
then it's I don't know. I'm one of those people that I like to like check things off on my list. Like I don't know if that makes me type A, type B. I don't remember all that stuff. But like I write down every single day, like I want to accomplish this and I want to accomplish that, and then I can like cross it out. And so I feel like that's very similar when you can like pull it off the wall or whatever, and you're like done.
Yeah, and I think it's really nice to see, like, I guess it's almost like looking at, like, a board game, like, you have your start and you have your
Uh-huh.
finish, and it's like, "Oh, okay, so, like, this is how I get there," and like I say, things might change, some scenes might not get written, um, some things might get changed around, but, like, you have that basic, you
Mhm.
know, that basic plot, so, yeah, that's kinda how I'm trying to do it these days, and I feel like it does really work.
I've done a lot of these author interviews and I've never heard someone say like that's how they do it. And I think that's so cool. And that's what's so fascinating for me, like doing interviews like this is you all have such a different writing process, but it's so unique like to you, but it works for you. And I think that's so awesome again that it's like there's not one size fits all, when it comes to writing. And that's good for people, listeners or people like you said readers. Hey, if you have that itch, you want to go write a book, you don't have to do it my way, you don't have to do it someone else's way, like do it your way because everyone does it so differently.
So differently. And now, like, one thing that I would really recommend to people that are, like, wanting to write is, like, sit down with a piece of paper and, like, write your character's name at the top and just, okay, write out their age, their birthday, their zodiac sign, what snacks they might like, just the most random things you can think of, and, like, guarantee you there will be so much stuff in here that never ends up in the book. But I find that if you know your character inside and out, it helps you so much with writing because you have so much of a better understanding of what choice they would make in certain situations. Because sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you're like, "Oh, why are you doing that?" Like, I wouldn't do that, but it's like, "You would, I wouldn't." So, like, I'm in your point of view, so we have to do this and see what happens.
I like that a lot how you said that, like I wouldn't do it, but I'm not writing as me, I'm
Yeah.
writing I think that's so well put. I never thought of it that way, obviously, because you're channeling someone completely different. Like it's not you writing it. It's I'm in this person's brain right now, so I'm not acting as me, but I'm still typing the story.
Yeah, and, I think it's why sometimes we as readers can be so hard on, like, the female main characters because you're reading from their perspective and you're putting yourself in
Their
as
shoes.
them, and so when they make choices that you don't agree with, you're like, "Ugh," you know? You're like, "She sucks," but it's you have to think of them as their own person, and, we all would make different choices from each other.
You wouldn't tell your friends that. Like if you were close with your friends and they made a choice you wouldn't make, you wouldn't be like, you suck. Well, I mean, maybe you would, depending on how close you are with your friend. You might be like, you suck. Why would you do that? But a lot of times you'd be like, hey, it's all right. Like we'll figure it out. I wouldn't have done that, but that's okay, you know?
Yeah.
But there's someone on a page, we're like, ah, this author didn't do what I wanted them to. And it's like, no, it's just not what your brain said was right. That doesn't mean it's incorrect.
Yeah.
Well, I love so much again, like you put so many things in perspective. I think that's so awesome and just like the whole mindset and everything. Talking about this newest release, how has it been that it's been what about a week now since the book has come out?
Yeah, I mean, it's been way better than I expected. I mean, I kind of like I always try now to keep my expectations low because I used to drive myself crazy in the past, if it didn't hit a rank that I thought it should or, whatever it might be. And I've tried really hard to let go of that so that I just get to enjoy the
Mhm.
release and enjoy people reading it and what they have to say. And so I've been so happy and so excited because people have been loving Darren Rosie. And, um, it's been just it's been 2 years since the last book. So, do you,
Yeah, I can hear them.
God, they have what I call choir practice, and it drives me crazy. They will do this like at least twice a day, and all if nobody's in the room with them, they stand in a circle and they just start going. And sometimes it's literally like less barking and more like they're like literally trying to sing.
They're singing for you.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh my god, please stop! Like, choir.
That's so funny that you call it that. That's
Oh my
greatness.
god.
But with this, obviously Rule Breakers for Fall Harvest just came out. If people hey, it's the sixth book in a series, but it could still be a standalone. So if someone is like, okay, sum it up. I know this is so hard because you just wrote a whole book about it. But try to sum it up in, like 2 to 3 sentences, what people can expect. So they're like, okay, if I want to pick this up, then maybe they love this story and then they go back and read some of the other stories. Or maybe they're like, hey, I'm interested, but I have to do things in order. Then they go back to book one and they kind of work their way up to now that we're on this book.
So Dare and Rosie have known each other since they were kids. They were best friends growing up, and they had a falling out in high school and then ended up at the same college together. And they've just continued to cross paths. And then Dare gets his professor pregnant, and he doesn't know until the baby's here. And his lawyer is like, you need to clean up your act because you're not looking very good to want custody. And so he's like, and she's like, she's like, I'm saying, but I'm not saying. You should probably get a wife to make things look better. And so the first person he thinks of is Rosie, even though they have been at odds for several years now. But I think deep down knows she'll help him out.
It gives, like friends to enemies, back to lovers, because it's
Yeah.
like falling out. So it's like we don't like each other, but I know like in the end you're gonna be there for me regardless, even though I don't want to be there for you. I
Yeah, and
love
I
it.
feel like it kind of like it throws a baby into the mix in an interesting way, and especially for both of them having no experience with a child and they're just trying to like figure it out. So it's not like, you know, she's more of a like it's not like she has like an advantage over Dare just because she's a girl. Like she doesn't
Mhm.
know. She's like, "Listen, I haven't dealt with kids. I don't know what's going on." So she's like, "Don't put this on me. We have to figure it out together."
Oh, 100%. I think it's like a very well, coming of age because they're both, like you said, we have no idea what we're doing here type of situation.
Yeah.
I like too that there's like all the conversations that he's like, I kind of want to be a stay at home dad. And I think that's so cool that, it's talked about because for some reason in society like that, I feel like is looked down upon, like the whole stay at home dad. Like there's plenty of stay at home moms, and obviously like that is such a hard job. But like dads could do it too, but we
Yeah.
don't talk about that because everyone's like, no, like that's not what like your dad should be doing. And so I like that that element was also in the story.
Yeah, I think it was so, like, unique finally getting in, like, Dare's head to write this book, and realizing how much he loves being a dad, and he was like, "I'm meant to be a dad." He's like, "I love this. Like, this is great." He's got the baby strapped to his chest. He's got his minivan now. He's ready to go. Um, because, I think, it's one of those things where I feel like you kind of just don't really know how a character is going to react to certain situations until you're writing their book, even if they've popped up in previous books.
No, I think that goes back to what you're saying again. Like until you put your head, like yourself in their perspective
Mhm.
all the way, you don't know what choices they're going to make. And even if it's not the choice that like you yourself would make, typically, you're like, well, I'm not making it. Like it's this is characters, and now that you've had him around, but it hasn't been his time to shine until now, you get to see like a whole different side of someone that readers are maybe like, okay, I wasn't expecting this, but I get it. Like it makes sense to me now.
Yeah.
I think that's so fun. So now that we're, this far, obviously, into a series, how do you feel at this point? Like from, book one when you first released that, it's been obviously said 2 years. How does it feel to come back and write this story at this point since it's been, some time?
It feels really good. I was definitely, like I say, it made those nerves around release worse because it was book 6 and it's been so long. But I like to say that I feel like this series and this world is my happy place, and I like to go off and write other stuff and then return to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there's going to be at least one more book. I feel like there might be more after that, but I'm like, I'm not gonna commit yet, but there's definitely one more.
That's awesome. So readers have something, else to look forward to in the series, but then you don't want to overpromise because if you say, oh, maybe there'll be two, and then you decide not to, they're gonna have their pitchforks and be like, hello.
Yes. I would rather than be, like, surprised and happy than being like, "Wait, where's the book?"
Showing up like, do you remember on this day at this time in this interview that you said potentially?
Yes. They'll be like, "I've got the screenshots, like, you said this, where is it?"
That's so how people are nowadays too. I feel like it's partially, like a Taylor Swift fault thing is, now everyone is like over analyzing everything, but they keep the receipts and they're just like, okay, but remember when
Yes. Everything can be an Easter egg.
everything. But I think that's fun though. Like I've talked to a few authors that they like that's part of their thing now. They're like, oh, now that I've seen how people love that, it is like my goal to include Easter eggs in my novels, and I'm here for it. I think it's fun. I
I
could
wish
wait.
I was I wish I could. I feel like I can't plan that far ahead to do something like that. So I'm like, I'll let other people do it and I get to enjoy it, and then I don't have to mess with it for myself.
That's would 100% be me. I could like think I would plan something and then I would forget like 5 books later that I planned this thing out and I'd be like, oh, ha, oops. never,
Yeah,
never.
I feel like I just don't think I could keep up with it. I'd be like, "Wait, what? What did I post? What did I say?"
Yeah, totally, totally understand that. So when you're not writing, because obviously, like you again are a whole human being, you have interest outside of being an author. What is it something that you like to do when it's like, okay, I need to take a step back from the books for a second? What is one of your go-to things?
I like to read, but I feel like that's pretty obvious. Um, I don't know. This is like this has been like kind of like a problem lately. Literally, my kidney doctor was like, "You need to get some hobbies because writing's your job now. It's not a hobby anymore. Get some things that you like to do." I really enjoy cooking, and I really want to learn how to bake. I mean, I bake some things, but I feel like baking is such a science that you have to like, really perfect. And so that's something that I'd really want to over the coming months. I really want to like get better at baking.
I totally think that is something that would be really interesting to jump into. And a lot of people, just like you said, it is still very much a science. People are like, oh, like you're into baking. You don't realize how hard baking is.
Baking is so hard. I cannot bake cookies to save myself. Like they never come out the way that I want them to, and I'm just like, why? And then I get mad, and then I'm like, I'm never making cookies again. It'll be like 5 years before I bake them again.
I just buy the prepackaged, like, oh, it's already done for me. Plop. There we go. Like it's gonna
That's the way to do it. No, those turn out okay. I Whenever I try to do them from scratch, like my mom can do them perfectly, and I'm like, "What do you do?" And she's like, "I just use the recipe on the chocolate chip bag," and I'm like, Well, that's what I did because you told me to, and mine are burnt and ugly looking, so I don't know what I did wrong. But again, that's where, like, baking's a science. If you have something that is just slightly off, it can ruin everything.
No, 100%. My fiance, I don't know, like, where he got this just, like, baking gene. He does, like, breads specifically, but
Okay.
he just, like, sometimes doesn't even have to look at a recipe, or he just gets, like, the teeny tiniest, like, check-in, whatever, but he can bake bread so good, like, he'll get a random hunch, and he's like, "I'm gonna make us, like, homemade pita for hummus," and he'll just, like, go in the kitchen and, like, perfect pitas, and I'm lucky because I can't do that, but, like, pizzas now, if we ever wanna make homemade pizza, I used to go, like, buy the dough from the store, and that's, like, a sin in our household now. He has to make the dough, but it's so good every time, and so I'm like, "Well, I'm not gonna tell you no."
Yeah, because it's like when you can do that, it is so much better. Like, it tastes so good.
And he loves it. Like, if we commit to something, we've had friends over and we've had, like, huge pizza nights, and he just makes so much, and he'll spend, like, 3, 4 hours just prepping, like, all of this dough for pizzas, and I'm like, "I don't know how to help you because I'm going to mess it up," and he's like, "No, stay out of my kitchen. I got this. Like, this is my dough."
He's like, "Get out. Don't even look at my dough. Just
He's
let
like,
me do my thing."
"You mess it up somehow just being in this vicinity. Like, go in there. You can come help later." I'm like, "Okay." So fun, and it's yeah, I if you start getting to baking, if you need to test any subjects, you can, I'll take some of your cookies even if they're a little bit burnt. I always love making a cookie.
Well, I'll try to scrape the burnt stuff off.
I'm always a willing test subject when it comes to cookies. So, if you ever need to once you get into that phase, just let me know, and I'm your girl.
Absolutely.
Well, back into, obviously your job as being an author. What do you have, next down the line that maybe we could like tease a little bit for people to get excited? Obviously, I hate asking this question because you just released a book and you're like, no, like go read this first. But
So I really don't have, like, too much to say about it yet, but my next book will be Until Then, and it's Derek and Izzy's book for the people that have read 1111. So
Mhm.
that would be Reed's dad
Okay.
and his sister. So it's an age gap. Um, she's she's 27 and he's like 44, 45, I think. I can't remember. Um, and I think this is probably going to be my spiciest book.
Oh, okay. That's something that gets people excited in general. Like you tell them, dangle the spicy carrot, and it's like that meme with like the
Yeah,
guy with the
I think it's gonna be spicier than 1111.
I as a reader love to hear that, but I know there's plenty of other people that will also love to hear that. They're gonna be like, "Okay, give it to me now."
Yeah, Derek is waiting for his moment to shine. He's like, "This is my moment."
I love that. I love that so much, and I will be looking forward to it. That's all I have to say. I'm excited. Well, thank you so much again for taking time to just chat with me today. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that maybe you just want to say to readers, or especially after this first release week? Anything that you just want to mention?
I just want to thank the readers for everything that they do, whether it's just reading the book or leaving a review or posting on social media. I always say that, like, word of mouth is an author's best asset. And I just readers have so much power, and I think that they should be acknowledged for that because it's amazing the things that they can do.
Absolutely, and I think that as a reader, I'm like, it's nice to hear stuff like that, but also, again, you guys have like the way harder jobs. Like, I'll just read a book and like, be happy about it and then like continue to think about it. And you're like, oh, I have to create a whole other like world character. Okay, here I go. And where can people best get connected with you? Well, first off, where can people best get like find your books and get connected to your books? If they're like, okay, I'm in, I need something, where do they just right now, where can they go get them?
The best place would be to just go to my Amazon author page and scroll through my books. I also do have a website. It's just my name, www.micaleasmeltzer.com. I do have a reading order listed on there. I think I need to add my last couple of books to it. I haven't been updating it. Um, but yeah, those two places should be where to start to get information.
Awesome. Love that. And I love that you have a reading order, especially when you have so many books. I know people very much appreciate that. They're like, okay, this is my
It can
beginning.
be very overwhelming.
This is where I'm starting, but actually, where do I start?
Yeah.
Love that. Well, where can people best connect with you now as, yourself on social media and things like that? If they could like be like, okay, I want to follow you and things like that.
My Instagram for sure. I'm much more active there than I am anywhere else. And so that's just at Micalea Smeltzer. And yeah, I need to get better about like posting stories and stuff that I'm actually in and not just sharing stuff. But like if you message or anything like that, it's me.
Awesome. Well, I know people love that too, that they know that they're actually talking to you and not that there's anything wrong with like someone having an assistant, but it's just so different when it's like, oh my God, I'm actually talking to the author and people get excited and you can like
Yeah, for
talk
sure.
about your books. That's so awesome. Well, thank you again so much for taking the time to jump on today. I had so much fun chatting with you. You guys make sure that you are staying up to date with everything happening here at Michaela's Book Nook and more. And be sure to check out all of her books because there are so many good ones that you will absolutely love and adore. And until next time, everyone, bye.